Alright, so, we are back here at Disneyland. More specifically for the hyper reality experience that is, for Star Wars and The Void. I really wanted to check it out, especially because I'm all decked out in my VRLA gear, so, thought I might as well. I realize what I'm experiencing more of is the traffic from LA and all that stuff rather than the actual Star Wars thing, because it started at 6:30, but we will see what happens. Speaking back on the topic of hyper reality, one place in particular, especially if you're going to be here in Silicon Beach, is going to be the fact that obviously the happiest place on earth right behind me here is going to implement some sort of augmented reality or virtual reality. Now, they've done this before back, I would say, in the 90s, early millennia, when they used to have interventions. They essentially had something that was kind of a virtual reality experience. But now, since Disney owns a portion of the Void, you're going to see a lot more hyper reality, especially in the park, or maybe in the newer park. I think at some point, especially because there's that whole delay right now, I should really tell somebody that I do have a free ticket that's just extra. Mainly because I planned this originally to come with some friends, and then they ended up canceling, and it was just a mess. Some of them got sick, some of them aren't. It's just, the entire situation right now is kind of weird. But I still wanted to check this thing out because I wasn't able to beta test it. So now, The Void. Is it essentially worth going, I guess, multiple times over? Yeah, I mean, if you're really into Star Wars, and again, you're really into virtual reality, it's kind of like a video game. But again, I have to say, it's probably one of the most expensive attractions here in the Magic Kingdom. So I'm excited to see what the Void has in store, especially because it's going to be here to stay for a while. And what's cool is, just like the Tower of Terror, it's a reprogrammable ride. So essentially, they can always change the programming that's in there, and that's what they've been doing in some of the other parks. But one of the other things I have to say, two things I learned tonight. One, if you get a Void ticket, they kind of don't care what time you show up. You know, just don't try to be too late. And two, man, am I gonna miss the whole setup here for Downtown Disney, because this whole area is gonna be a hotel. But let's go. So upon returning and kind of talking about the Void experience, I'm going to be talking about, well, could we see the technology from the Void implemented in a Ready Player One like scenario? Many ways yes, many ways no. Let's get right into it. Now, granted, I'm going to preface this by saying that this is going to be a very technical, heavy-handed overview of how exactly it works. If you don't want the tech explanation and me to ruin the magic as to how the Void works, skip to this point of the video right here. Otherwise, well, viewer be warned, we're going to be talking about the Void and how it works. Now, not exactly hidden from the public, the Void actually explains what is in their hardware, and, well, I mean, it's what you would see in your normal everyday rig. You got an Intel chip, an NVIDIA GPU, and, of course, you got a headset with a Leap Motion Plus. But, more specifically, how exactly does the magic work? Well, you had these nifty-difty little wristbands here for every single Void experience you go to. Each one has a very unique QR code, and that QR code is scanned, and essentially a QR code on your actual Rapture kit is also scanned, and syncs that information all together. I'm reverse engineering basically because I have the wristband still here, and essentially it outputs, if you were to scan it, a JavaScript object notation text file in a way. It's not really that amazing, but again, it syncs between the localhost server that's inside the shop and, of course, your Rapture kits and the game you are playing, as well as souvenirs like the photos at the end, because they don't allow you to take photos inside. So let's talk about it a little more. I'm going to have to explain it, though, on the whiteboard, so come with me. So I'm going to be drawing up how exactly the Void experience works, and kind of a rough map layout. So now, obviously, you have 3 Rapture Kit devices, which is the way that the Void experience can be delivered. Essentially, it's a many-to-one situation where the one is the server and the many are the clients. So you have around 16 or so people within the experience, and everything is for the most part scripted. You do get to do some stuff on your own, but so now let's go into how exactly the void tracks you within the entire, well, attraction. Essentially, you have an array of infrared sensors scattered throughout your entire experience, and very much so, like a room, it would notice that, hey, there's some new people here, trigger a specific event, and run through the script. Specifically with this Star Wars themed experience, you get blasters. It's really cool. How does it actually recognize what you're doing? It doesn't sync towards the player, so you don't get like a player count, you don't get like any of that type of accuracy information, but you do get to use a blaster. Granted, it is very much like a Bluetooth controller in a way, but that is all synced up through possibly another server, and essentially you get to see that device because of, well, some object recognition or what have you. Again, it's very much like what you saw in my VRLA vlog, which if you haven't seen that, it's right here, so watch it, because you do get to see some of those technologies kind of taken and implemented within the Void itself. Again, there's a bunch of just infrared sensors. That's basically it. It's just shitloads of infrared sensors within the experience, and that's how it's able to detect where you're at, and even to allow you to use the blasters and whatever. Very much like what you would see in, well, Star Wars. So other than being able to use physical assets and being able to trigger it in a way just like video game QuickTime events, I thought it was overall pretty interesting. So yes, now that begs the question, how exactly would this Ready Player One like experience work? Now, with Ready Player One, how they describe it is, again, a mobile headset type display. Granted, you're going to introduce a few problems with power and essentially heat. That's where I think the more critical questions should appear whenever you're trying to talk about bringing VR to a mobile platform. Now, granted, with a mobile platform, you're working with a smaller box rather than what you see with the Rapture kits that the Void essentially has. Again, you have to take that heat and disperse it out evenly so that, well, you don't end up frying the component, but more specifically, you don't end up cooking the user. And that's one issue. As far as battery doesn't seem to be that big of an issue because, again, we have new technology that's emerging from Samsung, and time will tell when they actually release it, but it's a carbon-based battery rather than a lithium-ion based one. And a lot of the studies do show that, well, the carbon-based ones should perform better than what the lithium-ion ones perform, like right now, like the lithium-ion powered battery that I use on this camera or this laptop. They do wear out over time. Although the carbon one, it shouldn't be as dramatic of an effect, but again, there are those pesky laws of physics that you do have to abide by, so not much you could do with that. But Ready Player One, could it actually be done? Technically, yes, but you would need to take into consideration the three major problems, which has to do with the network bandwidth and the amount of people that the network can handle at any given time, so that you can avoid a problem like Pokemon Go. And of course, you have the processing problems, which include how exactly are we going to disperse the heat after, let's say, 10 hours of consecutive use. And of course, the battery, even though you could just plug the device probably right into an outlet of some sort. Or again, when we switch over from carbon-based batteries from lithium-ion ones, well, that problem might actually solve itself. But again, hardware and network, it's just always, there's always a problem with that. And I think at that, I'm going to leave the video right there. So that's my thoughts on the Void, and more specifically, how the Void could essentially become what you see in the movie Ready Player One. So, yeah, I hope you guys like the video. Like, share, and subscribe, and, well, I'll see you again, possibly next month, or 2 months from now, whenever I decide to launch a new video. Alright, change this shirt though, because, well, I should stay somewhat topical.